The Shop 3 Sheep Eater. Written and read by W.P. Thrift, who can be contacted at Lantis Armstrong on Twitter. And cover art created by JD, contactable at Radix_L on Twitter. Chapter 8. In his house at Rayleigh, Fat Sheep Eater waits, farting. Back in Georgia at the McCoy Peach Farm, Mr. March was sitting on a large rock which was on Lantis's back, who was outside doing push-ups in the dead of the night. With every push-up, a pained cry and/or whimper. They had to resort to middle-of-the-night training for now, as it was scorching hot during the day, and Lantis already had one heat stroke. They were keeping him better hydrated now, and out of the sun, just until he gets a bit more used to the workout. Mr. March refused to believe the reasoning, of course. He thought Cassidy was just coddling him because she couldn't accept that someone of his power existed. And poor Lantis was having to go through weaker workouts now because of her overprotectiveness. But this was just his view. "I can't feel my fingers!" Lantis cried out. "One less thing to hurt, then!" Mr. March laughed joyfully. Suddenly, a chilled wind hit him, and Mr. March felt very cold. Very, very cold. Far too cold. And he immediately knew it wasn't normal. He exhaled and could see his breath. It was an ill omen. His jolly expression dropped quickly to a dead serious one. Something caught the corner of his eye, and he turned quickly, ready to destroy anything threatening that may be there. But there was nothing. He blinked, then caught what he had noticed. His wife was standing by a window, up on the second floor, wearing her white nightgown and her pink hair curlers. He waved to her, almost absent-mindedly, but when she didn't respond, he began waving with both hands. No reaction from her, at all.
"Say, Lantis, you keep this up, but I'll be right back. Gotta go see what the missus wants,"
Mr. March said. Then he jumped down off the small boulder and ran towards the house. Lantis immediately rolled over to drop the rock off his back, and soon as it was off, he curled up in a ball and began crying uncontrollably. Running up the stairs inside, Mr. March stopped at the top of the stairs, though his legs were still jogging in place, and he tried to picture the house's layout. He saw her at the window, facing the front of the house. You go inside and to the right a bit to reach the stairs, and there's a wall to the right, so there must be a way around. Left, of course. He had to circle around the top of the stairs and head over to find a stretch of windows where his wife was at. She stood in front of the window, mumbling something to herself, rhythmically. Over and over again, she said,
"Fin gleamin' gluna, sheep eater relay no waffatagan." "Pam!"
Mr. March called out to her, running over. She didn't move. He grabbed her by the shoulder and quickly turned her, his face etched with concern. Her eyes were rolled up in her head, white. She was sleepwalking and making weird undertaker eyes. She repeated under her breath, and it was the first time Mr. March could clearly make out what she was saying.
"Fin gleamin' gluna, sheep eater relay no waffatagan."
He shook her awake, as he well knew the saying that you should never wake a sleepwalker was a myth.
"Pam, wake up!"
She gasped as she awoke, and declared in English,
"In this house in Rayleigh, fat sheep-eater waits, farting."
She blinked a couple of times before nearly stumbling to the ground, but she reached up to grab his arms, which were still on her shoulders, before she could drop. Once she had her balance, he dropped his hands down her arms a ways and pulled her slightly closer.
"Are you okay?"
Mr. March asked her.
"Dog? I had a vision,"
Mrs. March replied.
Yeah, I gathered that much. You were talking in your sleep,"
Mr. March informed.
"Oh, please, tell me it's not what I think it is."
Mrs. March pursed her lips and slowly nodded.
"Oh, I'm afraid so. Sheep-eater has already made his move, and he was completely successful. I can feel it in my bones. Cthulhu is dead, and in his place a much darker king has risen."
Mr. March's face went pale.
"Oh, no, no! It can't have happened already! Sheep-eater may now be the most powerful monster on this entire planet! Atlantis has only just begun his training! Oh, he'll never be ready in time!"
Mrs. March shook her head.
"No, we don't know that yet. This pushes our schedule up a lot more than we had hoped. But Sheep-eater needs time to prepare, too. He's only taken his throne. He needs time to expand his new sphere of influence." "Well, how much time? Certainly not that much. Not with the power of the old gods. Oh, we should have sent Liquid the second we couldn't find Lantis straight away, to begin phase 2 of our plan. In fact, I'm going to give him a call right now. Liquid must stop Sheep-eater before that monster reaches full strength. Oh, we can't use Liquid any more than we could go there ourselves."
Mrs. March tried to talk reason into him.
"We've both been around far too much violence and bloodshed in our lives, seen too much pain. It's made all of our minds weak and extremely vulnerable to falling into madness. And Liquid's no better off. He just finished burying every friend he's ever had, you know."
Mr. March let go of her and turned towards the window she had been looking out. Lantis was out there, crawling across the ground towards a peach which had fallen off of a tree, when a honey badger came out of nowhere and grabbed it. Then Lantis grabbed the honey badger, and the two of them began fighting over the peach.
"Oh, just look at that guy go! He's amazing! But without our specific set of highly specialized skills, which we have to offer him, he'd never be able to stand up against a monster like this."
Mr. March fretted.
"Especially not with Cassidy coddling him, slowing down our progress. What we should do is teach him as much as we can. Then, if we're not certain he's 100% ready, we'll just send Liquid with him."
Mrs. March tried to reach a compromise.
"Sheep-eater's goal, as you well know from our intel, is to become planet Earth itself. We've been working to stop him for a long time now. This could be our final mission, Doug, and the first of many for Lantis, who will carry on our torch for us into a new generation. Just a shame that he has to start here, against something like this,"
Mr. March said.
"Oh, Doug, don't you worry none. I believe in this man,"
Mrs. March told him. They stood by the window and watched Lantis get his hand bit by the honey badger, and after he wrestled his hand free, he proceeded to throw a fit, along with several rocks and bruised peaches, at the honey badger, whom just didn't give a shit as it waddled away back off into the peach orchard. Bright and early one August morning, Lantis was outside dragging a gigantic tire full of cement around by a rope. It was the 5th day in a row he had managed to make it all the way through the warm-ups, and was able to move on to this horrifying task. The dirt driveway leading up to the house used to have grass growing on both sides of it, lining it and creating a nice aesthetic barrier between the road and the peach trees on either side. Peach trees that encircled the entire house and lined the driveway all the way down the road. But as Lantis had drug the tire around in a huge circle for a while now, all of the grass was dead besides the odd patch. So now the road leading up to the house had a sad and sickly look to it, similar to mange. Making it through the entirety of the warm-up routine recently, Lantis had actually gotten his first secret agent lesson from the Marches, which largely revolved around a shooting range they had set up out behind the house. They had other lessons to teach him, but he had fallen asleep through those. They assumed he was deeply meditating on what they had to teach him, of course. They still always assume the best about him. But he slept a lot these days, in fact. He'd sleep 18 hours a day whenever he could get away with it. The exercises had gone from bone-crushing and crippling to simply deadly exhausting for him. His body danced freely back and forth between the breaking point all day long, and only by coincidence had nothing killed him so far. A pickup truck not too dissimilar from Cassidy's was coming down the driveway, which Lantis didn't notice at all, having near heat-stroke-related tunnel vision. But Mr. March, just inside the house, enjoying an early morning lemonade and watching some game show on TV while glancing outside to check on Lantis, did notice it. He was about to ask Cassidy if it was her truck, then realized how silly of question that would have been, as she was standing right there.
"Maybe I am going senile,"
Mr. March worried. The truck stopped in the middle of the driveway and parked there. Then a lady whose facial expression freely melted back and forth between confidence and joy, as she was clearly uncertain how to be acting right now, emerged from the driver's side and came around to greet Lantis. "Hey, remember me?" Ray asked him. "Been a while, right, Lantis?" He heard her voice, recognized it, but couldn't place where the voice was coming from. His ears were ringing loudly, and it somewhat displaced his ability to recognize where sounds existed in space. But he finally managed to spot her through his half-blind, half-deaf, near-dead senses. "Oh, hey, Dashi! Welcome back!" Lantis said with as much energy as he could muster, which wasn't much. She always smelled like strawberries and beer, a combination which he didn't just love, he adored. It would provide him a nice hallucinogenic dream when he faded in and out of consciousness. She blushed and turned away. I really don't go by Dash anymore. And didn't I tell you I'd kill you if you called me by that stupid pet name version of it again?"
"Well, look who it is,"
Cassidy said, throwing her front door open and coming out down the front steps.
"Little Miss Hip popped out better than the world herself, in the flesh. Still got that attitude about you, I say."
"Oh, fuck you, hillbilly," Ray shot back.
"I might just reckon you turn that shitty truck of yours around and be heading on back off my property now, you hear?"
Cassidy suggested. "Not when you psychos are about to kill my friend here," Ray scolded. Cassidy actually flinched at that one. She was far more self-conscious about Lantis's well-being, though she had no idea he kept company such as this girl. What could Cassidy even say to that? That she had been trying to take care of him? That would be just an admission of guilt. She knew how bad off he had it, and still didn't get him out of here. Instead, she went with,
"Oh yeah? Well, your bra strap is showing."
Cassidy felt it was a much better response. Ray began to march over towards her heated foe, saying, "Cute, hearing fashion advice from someone who bleaches her hair. Yeah, that's right. I know wheat blonde ain't your real hair color. Newsflash, everyone in high school knew that."
"Huh, and blue is your real hair color? Just embarrassed to be a natural dumb blonde."
Cassidy fired back. "All that bleach has really been soaking into your brain, I see," Ray said. They were just about face to face when the door barged open, and Mr. and Mrs. March went running out to greet their daughter.
"Well, I can't believe you came down just to see us!"
Mr. March was so happy.
"Oh, Ray, how have you been?"
Mrs. March said. grabbing her in a hug after running at her so fast she was worried she'd be knocked down.
Oh, my goodness, your arms! When did you get all of these tattoos? Belvedere let you do this to your sweet, pretty arms?
Ray sneered, shoving her mom back off of her. Her mom was plenty strong enough to have held her in a vice grip, but she allowed her daughter to push away. Fucking Belvedere.
Ray, don't use those kinds of words around your mother,
Mrs. March snapped. Ray blushed and sneered while looking down. Freaking Belvedere was fired before I even started high school. I've been living at that house alone for the last 9 years, Mother. Thank you so much for abandoning me, by the way. It's helped me to become an incredibly stable adult. Cassidy had the perfect cute little comment to throw in there, but bit her tongue to stop herself. This was probably not the time to keep trying to push Ray's buttons.
Oh, no! He never told us,
Mr. March said.
I had no idea. Oh, I'm so sorry, Ray.
He tried to approach her, but she shot him a glare and took a single, long step back. He got the hint and stopped. I'm not going to forgive either of you for that, so don't ask. And Mother, I'll get whatever the hell tattoos I want, and as many of them as I want. My body's the only thing I have left to fucking control. The extra emphasis she put on the F word made her mom flinch. Then a wave of embarrassment began to wash over Ray as she realized she had just had this blow-up right in front of Lantis. Yeah, seeing her parents again after so long may sound important, but they were both long dead in her mind. This didn't count as a reunion. It would never count unless they came home for good. Turning to see what Lantis's reaction to all this was, she realized he was running into a tree over and over again, trying to move forward with the tire. Only then did she begin to understand how delirious he was. She knew that feeling very well. She remembered the tire drag. Her father had made her do it when she was 12 years old. You monsters. Ray turned back to her parents, speaking to them accusingly.
So, did you come here just to chew us out?
Mr. March asked. Great first impression, Ray, Cassidy said. Now, if you're done breaking your poor parents' hearts, could you kindly scoot off my property? No, I won't be. I brought my shit. Oh, excuse me, Mother. I mean, I brought my luggage. It's in the back of the truck. Would you be a doll and carry it to my room for me, Cassie? I know you have plenty of room to spare, Ray said. Cassidy's jaw slowly slacked. Ray had only meant that it was a big house, but Cassidy thought that it may have been a jab at her losing her parents recently. She felt her blood begin to boil.
Staying here? Whatever for?
Mr. March asked. Because Ray froze. The way she had rehearsed it over the past few weeks, as she had slowly built up the courage to come here, she thought it would be easy to say, I'm here to make sure you idiots don't kill Lantis, because he's my friend. But she knew that wasn't the entire reason, and the extra bit that she just couldn't even admit to herself got stuck in her throat. So, panicking, Ray changed her story right there on the spot. I'm here to make amends and reconnect with you two, okay? I'm still your daughter no matter how you've treated me. So, please, Cassidy, would you get my luggage? The thought of spending any extra time with her parents disgusted her, but she was far more willing to say that than to finally let her actual feelings be known. Her parents, meanwhile, were dumbfounded.
For real?
Mr. March asked.
Oh, Ray!
Her mother was immediately in tears.
I love you so much, honey.
She rushed back over to hug her again, and then began to kiss her all up and down her face.
I love you so much. I'll always be your mother, too, even if it doesn't feel like it sometimes. I promise. Well, I reckon we can try and work things out.
Mr. March scratched the back of his head. Mr. March's own ability to perceive when people were lying was setting off red alerts in his head. It came from years of interrogation, though that was typically at knife point rather than standing around having a casual chat. But whatever reason Ray might want to stay here, he was willing to give all this a chance to work out, if she was. "Unpack your own shit," Cassidy muttered, turning to walk off into the peach fields. She had work to do, and didn't want to be around to see Ray moving into her house. She'd have to burn whatever bed that girl stayed on. She just knew it. Ray's dad grabbed up all of her luggage and carried it inside for her, showing her to an empty room upstairs. Meanwhile, down at the ground outside, Lantis laid in the dirt, half-conscious. His every muscle was shredded yet again today, and he had no strength left to give to drag the tire any further. Yet, he did have just enough vision to see, once more, something moving around inside of the barn. He squinted, trying to make out what it was, but once again, it was gone before he could make out any details. That concludes Chapter 8 of Sheep Eater. Tune in every Tuesday for new chapters, and please subscribe to be notified the moment they're released. If you would like to reach me, you can do so at Lantis Armstrong on Twitter. That's LANTISARMSTRONG. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope you'll join us again for next week's chapter. Every Day I'm Chickenin', Part 1.